quorum. It was a publicized meeting, and so we will not open it because we will not be able to close it. But it is just one thing on the agenda was going to be with our exit interview with the people from the AdvancED. We want to thank them for all their time and everything. Pleasure meeting all of you. So turn it over to Mr. Hemswaller now.
Okay. Well, as you said, this is the main purpose is to hear their report after spending almost 3 days here at Tipton Schools, and so I'll just turn it over to our lead evaluator, Dr. Paige Fenton-Hughes.
Okay. Sure. Thank you, Kevin. Thank you, Rick. Appreciate it. Thank you guys for being here. We appreciate you coming and doing a board meeting and to have the exit. We want it to be official because it's a big deal, because it's a lot of work, and it's a good reflection of what we've seen in your schools. You're going to get a good report today. So you should all relax. I told Kevin, you're going to get a good report and you're going to get accredited. So we'll say that up front. I don't think you're going to hear anything today that's a surprise to you. You guys know better than we do what you need to work on in your system. I will tell you that we heard from your board that they're committed to continuous improvement. They're committed to learning and making ourselves better and to supporting all of you as you do that work. So I think we have a good basis for moving forward, and we had a good meeting with Kevin, and I think we're all on the same page about where you're headed and the work that you have kind of in front of you. So want to start out first by thanking everyone. I want you to know, Dan said yesterday, I might have gained 3 pounds. And if Dan gained 3 pounds, God knows what I've gained. But there was food like you cannot believe. And yesterday I went into Tammy's room and I got to meet some of the kids cooking our food. And I understand, by the way, Principal Russian, I hope you tell Joe happy birthday today. It's his birthday. He was one of the students cooking for us. Hi, Scott. Hi. Nice to get here on time, buddy. I know you were working. Shane told me, so it's okay. So anyway, just thank her for all of her preparation. We have our 2 babysitters, Michael and Jim, here. They've been getting our stuff, checking in on us, making sure we had our evidence, just being there all throughout the process. So we appreciate that. Principals, I know it's been a lot on your plate. It's a lot of work. But one of the things we were talking about today is that the first time you do a corporation accreditation visit, it's just a lot of work doing the work of that. You won't have that anymore because you're in a continuous improvement cycle now, and all you really have to do is worry about how you're going to keep your evidence up to date. Then you'll have a little bit of work right before the visit next time where you kind of get yourselves in order and set up your teams and that kind of thing. But the work is now set and the framework for that. So you won't have an event again. You don't want your visit to be an event. You want it to just be part of the work that you do all the time. So that's what will happen once you get over this hurdle this time. So I also want to thank my team. I had a terrific team. We were just sharing with Kevin. You know, you get off the plane from Wyoming. You don't know Wyoming. And you don't know anyone. You don't know what. I did know Jerry. Jerry and I did an Indiana visit before together. But they've just been terrific. We have been meticulous, I think, in going through the evidence that was provided to us, in making sure that we are only telling you what we can verify, what we heard, what we saw, what we read. If one person told us something, that's not going to show up in your report. These are things that we could see a lot of times, themes across your district. So I think all of you pretty much know me in here, but since I don't know what Joe's doing with this video, I'll do a little introduction and then I'll have my team introduce. But my name's Paige Fenton-Hughes. I'm from Wyoming, and I've loved being out here. I work for the State Board of Education in Wyoming as a coordinator. And before that, I was a superintendent, and bless your heart for that, Kevin. And I love being it, but now that I step back, I love doing what I'm doing. Was a principal, counselor, and then I taught English before that. So that's kind of my background, and all of us bring different backgrounds. So I think that's what makes us kind of come and gel together as a team, because all of us are good at something else. So I'll let the team introduce themselves. Jerry?
My name is Jerry Morgan. I am from Indiana. The ALA must come from Indiana. I'm a retired middle school principal, and I took early retirement a few years ago, and since that time I have worked part-time for AdvancED Indiana at the office of Indiana State University.
Okay, go ahead, Dan.
I'm Dan Caudle. I teach at Chesterton Middle School in the Tipton School Corporation. I'm middle school U.S. history teacher.
I'm Kim Brown. I work for Porter County Education Services as a special education teacher, middle school, Falk Raising.
Peggy Johnson. I am from Sanford, Florida. I am presently in the classroom teaching gifted education and advanced English classes.
Perfect. So there you go. Great team. And appreciate all your help, all your input. A couple late nights, but not too bad. It's just they stayed up late. I didn't make them stay up late. So let's go through this. I hope you're going to get some ideas about ways to move forward. You're going to hear some really good things, because we saw some really good things in all of your schools. So our job is to come here as a team to help validate the work that you know you're already doing well. Sometimes you need an outside person to come in and say, gosh, you really are doing that, and that's great. And then our other job is to work as partners with you to help you try to identify just a couple things you can use to move forward down the path. So we're really your partners. We're not a gotcha team. That's not the purpose of accreditation. If it were, people wouldn't be brave enough to do it. So your corporation has subjected itself and all of you to this process to try to get better, to try to move down this road together. And we hope we can do that today. So there's three areas that we look at, and the standards are divided up inside these areas. So teaching and learning consists of standards 3, 5, and the student performance diagnostic. The second one, leadership capacity, is all about you all and most of these folks here today, and that's standards 1, standard 2, and the stakeholder feedback. And all those scores go up into that section. And then the third section is resource utilization. So that's kind of John's deal, and that kind of stands by itself, and that's standard 4. Okay? So what we're trying to do is build the capacity of our system to impact student learning. And everyone's a part of that. Hi, come on in. Oh yeah, you're good. Come on in. If you're late, you get the privilege. I'm sitting in the front. It's great.
Down at the other location that it's at. So
Oh, I know. We switched up because we switched the
we got our
time.
exercise. That's great.
Good, good. And then we want to make ourselves more effective and efficient. And I learned from Michael how we're doing that. And we learned about the, what are those, Kevin? Those, how we manage our paper. I mean, we're already working on, yeah. We're already working on this piece, because the more effective and efficient we are, the more we can funnel funds to instruction. That's our job. So we're looking at these two things. So all of us who are here today to look at your team do what you do. So we're all educators. We're all looking at the same kinds of work you all are looking at, and we're trying to help you the best way we can to support your work. So we don't do this for a living. We're not accreditors or anything like that. We come from the same work you do. And our job is to determine how closely your institution, your corporation, aligns with the framework of the standards. I think I basically already addressed this, but we're going to try to give you some feedback that moves you forward. So here's who we talked to, a lot of people. We talked to all 8 of your administrative team, 36 teachers, and those were in the groups that you provided to us, as well as just folks that we talked to in the classroom, got feedback from. 13 support staff, 47 kiddos. And you can imagine, we heard some stories. And they were almost all good, by the way. And Rick's son tutored me a little bit on the iPad, but I didn't know that's who it was. But I'm much more proficient now than I was. We talked to 15 parents, terrific group, got a ton of feedback from them. And we talked to Rick and Karen. And we went, I said that wrong, and I said it wrong to Kevin. We didn't go in 54 classrooms. We went into a ton of classrooms, but we did 54 20-minute observations. So we were in there for 20 minutes, 54 times, and filled out the Elliott observation form. So you'll be able to see that feedback. Now you're going to see corporation feedback. So you're not going to see your elementary school disaggregated from your middle school, from your high school. This is what we saw across the corporation in all of your classrooms in a snapshot in one day. So here's what those ratings are. And I want to talk to you about these ratings, and I want to talk to you about the overall ratings that you're going to see when you get your report, okay? We used to think that anything in like a 2 would spin us up a little bit, right? You should not think that. That is not how this new advanced ed process looks at all. There are times when if you score a 2 on that rubric, you have to have an implemented process over time. It's pretty easy to score a 1. Right? You could be doing it and still be a 1 in this new rubric. So one of the things I'm going to encourage you to do today is to not pay a lot of attention to where those numbers fall on a scale. What you need to do is pay attention to where the baseline they give you. So the next time you do this and practice it, you'll move on that. There's no, like Kevin and I were talking, you're not really comparing yourself to another district or another corporation in this process. You're comparing yourself to yourself, and are you getting better? Okay? So each one of these little sections, equitable learning environment or high expectations, has a number of indicators. Now think about this. If I don't happen to see it today, you're not going to get a 3 on that. Doesn't mean you don't do it, doesn't mean you're not good, doesn't mean your kids aren't in a good environment. Just didn't see it today. That's not a bad thing. You're not going to see everything every day. You can't do it all every day. So we're looking for a big picture of trends across the corporation. The same thing happens on the standards. So when we start going through those and looking at indicators, understand this. All means all. It means every single one. I'm going to say this to you. It's almost impossible to get a 4. That's not bad. We don't live in that column. Sometimes we scooch over there, and we're there for a little bit. And you guys know that from doing teacher evaluations. You might be a 4, but you might not be a 4 next year. But if you're a 3, you're pretty darn good. If you're a 2, you're still doing it consistently. You have to be not doing something consistently to be down in that 1. But if you're a 2, you can be doing it over time and still get a 2 because it's a high standard now. So you'll look at some of those and you'll see a word in there, and we went through every word, and it would be like, gosh, did we see that? And we said, Kim is like the evidence expert. So she'd be like, oh, let me see, I read that. Shh, up would come something from Michael's little folders, and she would find it in there. So think about those words in there, and don't be disappointed if you rated yourselves a 3 and we rated you a 2, really. That doesn't matter. What matters is where you are and where you're going to go. So, and I bet when you look at that rubric again, you'll go, oh, yeah, we see that. Or there'll be a word like consistently. Yeah, we're pretty consistent, but maybe not all the time. Okay, you'll see it when you go through it carefully, okay? So here's what these scores look like. Your highest area, look at this, well managed, really well managed, almost across the board. Great kids. I stood in the hall with Rick, and I was like, really, is this passing period? It's silent in here. You know, I'm sure that's kind of how lunch is. So that was a really high, as well as supportive learning environment. Kids were supported. Kids took risks. They raised their hands to answer questions. I was in a classroom. I shared with these guys. The teacher was giving directions about stations. Oh, so you're going to go to this station, and you should have heard them. They were so excited. They wanted to go to that station. This one little girl said, I love doing that. I love that. You know, excitement about learning, lots of that. So those two areas, really high. Your lowest area, guess what? This is a hard standard. If you read, there's only 3 indicators in this section. You can't just turn on your technology. They have to be using it for collaboration, for research, for student-directed delving into work. Those are hard standards. But guess what? You already have a corporation goal dealing with that. Well, what do you know? You should have a corporation goal dealing with that. That's how it works. You've got these middle areas. But this one, high expectations, I think you'll see some alignment with the required actions on that. Here's what we think we see. You guys do a good job, really good job. Your scores are fine. Lori said, hey, you know, if you compare us across the county, our scores are generally above other county schools. And we looked at all your charts. We were very good and very diligent about your charts. Generally, you know, a lot of times above the state average, or if you're below it, right in there, right in there. We didn't see a lot of big gaps in there. But you guys could be great. I saw Kevin's book, Good to Great, on his shelf in there. You have an opportunity to be amazing, and you will get there. But right now, you're putting some frameworks in place to get there. So it's hard to focus 100% on instruction for every child when you're working on aligning your curriculum first. Okay, well, that's fine. Get that done. Go on to the next thing. So those kinds of little shifts in this will get you there. Because you already have, if you didn't have this, that would be kind of a big issue. You'd have a hard time moving on a scale if you didn't have a supportive learning environment or you had chaos, right? So you have all the things in line to go where you need to go. And you're already good. So you just need to go a little bit down the road. The Index of Educational Quality is a new score. So this only came out last year, so you're only the second year to get it. Here's your overall score. And these are the 3 areas I told you at the beginning. So you're looking here at standards 3, 5 in student performance. You're looking at standards 1, 2 in stakeholders. And you're looking at resource utilization. Not a lot of surprises probably, right? Good, very good scores. And you're solid. This is what you want to move. You want to move this guy over here now. Doesn't matter what other people are or where they are. That's where you are. So we had to choose a couple of powerful practices. Powerful practices aren't just things you do well. They're things that we would take home and implement them in our own districts if we had that opportunity, okay? The first one centers around your governing body. We talked to all of our groups. We talked to teacher groups. I dropped in on the 6th grade team. I was like, hey, I'm Paige. They said, come on in. And we visited for a little bit. We talked to your parents. We talked to your administrative team, everyone. And the indication was, and the evidence showed, that your governing body supports this path of continuous improvement that you're on. They're trying to get you the resources to do that. I think Karen, her words were, we want learning opportunities around best practices. We want to get better. And they're supporting you in doing that the best that they can. And also by not distracting you from that work. That can happen sometimes. You also demonstrate a lot of effective resource management inside the parameters that you're working under. Rick's team met with me because I was working on Standard 4, and we had to talk about how unfair it is across state lines what we provide for our children. And I might tear up a little bit on this. But you guys do a lot with a lot of constraints, and you should be proud of that work. You know, if you had the resources we have in Wyoming, I don't know what you could do with your kids. It would be amazing. So you're going to get a powerful practice for that. That's due to pretty much all of you in here. Teacher leaders, administrators, working on ways to work efficiently inside the parameters you have. And we heard things like, we just don't get told no a lot. If we can give a rationale, we can get what we need for our kids. And I deal a lot with legislators, and I know what you're up against. And they just don't understand what you could really do if you had the resources to move your kids. So let's talk about the required actions. Here's how we looked at it. If we were in a leadership position, governance, leadership in your corporation, how would we move forward down the same path you're moving down? We don't want to send you down a different path. Now, we would, if we saw some big issue, something that wasn't get done, we would make a required action around that. But the focus should be about moving where you need to go, okay? So here's what we saw around data. Tons of data, starting to really get that going. So you have pivot now, you have different ways to look at that. You're getting, it's like a warehouse in place so that you can pull up information on your students. All of that is in place. What this required action asks you to do is do some specific, rigorous training around how to take that data and transfer that into instruction, or on the operations side, into practices around effectiveness and efficiency. So we're not just talking about teachers using data here. We're talking about everyone across your school system getting rigorous training. Now, I know you've had some, because we went through your calendar and then teachers told us about that. But sustained over time, and then putting that into practice in a very focused way, because you have so much data. You can only really focus on a few things. So maybe that's common student work and acuity at the middle school and one other thing. Or maybe once you figure out if the performance tests are the thing you want to do, maybe it's that. You know, you'll have to decide. But then, train on that, and then implement that with fidelity. And here's one thing I'm going to tell you, y'all got to do it. So if somebody doesn't play, then that's where you're going to get off track. So it can't be 2 out of 3 schools jump on board and do it, because kids will be used to in 4th and 5th and 3rd grade doing certain things. Well, then when they go to Shane and Scott, they got to expect it there. And then when they go up to Joe and Rick, they have to expect that. Whatever it is, we have to do it with fidelity across the board. The second one, so we're thinking of this in order now, right? You've got this training now, intensive training on it, not just how to get into pivot, because you know how to do that now. How can you analyze and talk about it? Then, how can you transfer that over into high-yield instruction? So here's what we didn't see a lot in classrooms. We didn't see a lot of differentiation. So different target, different handout, different lecture. Now some, because if you're in a station, you're in a different reading group from this group of kiddos, things like that. Not across the board. So how can we ensure that every single kid in Jim's classroom, everyone, is getting his or her learning needs met every day? Every day. And the only way you can do it is rigorous attention to data, and then transferring over into a couple high-yield instructional strategies. Doesn't matter what they are, but I can expect it whatever grade I'm in Tipton Community Schools. I can expect certain kinds of things. And there's tons of them. You guys know that. There's no right answer. You pick what works for you, implement that, make it personalized, and make it consistent. And then the third thing is, evaluate what you did. Piece of cake. That's the hard part, isn't it, Kevin? And we're so not good about that in schools. So when we start something, we rarely think, what is the exact impact I want of it? And then how am I going to measure that? So it could be anything. It could be your PD. What's the exact impact we want of that, and how are we going to see if we did it? Sometimes it's just implementation. You can't even measure whether it works until you figure out if you're all doing it. So the first check is going to be, if I go in every classroom, is everybody doing it? The second check is, am I good at it then, right? And this goes on John's side of the house too. So if we say we're going to put in Messenger, how are we going to measure if that works? And if we're getting bang for the buck? If we're going to put in our new bus guidelines, what's the expectation in the reduction of discipline? And did we hit it? And if not, how do we have to adjust? So those made sense to us. They line up with your scores. So when you see the rubric, you're going to see that those are some of your lowest scores. And they'll move you right where you're going, I think, because you already are starting the data piece. You already have some good instructional practices in place, and you're getting this, but this part's hard. I hope that makes sense to you. When you get the report, you're going to get a narrative. So you'll see what evidence we looked at. You'll be able to read through it and say, oh, okay, we get that better. And if you don't, you can always call us, and we'll talk you through that. So like I said, you're going to get a recommendation for accreditation. That's going to go from us. Let me tell you the process about it. You've already taken part in your internal review. That's the part we all read. So you did self-assessments. You did all your writing. That was your internal review. Now we're here to do the external. In 30 days, Kevin's going to get a report. And it won't be official until June when the commission meets and stamps the report. But you're going to get it ahead of time and be able to work off that and look at it, okay? So that's where we are. I told Kevin you're going to get a great report. I think it is a good report. I think, and like I said, I hope you don't do this, and I hope you work with your staffs. Do not get that report and sit down with your scores and say, oh, we scored ourselves a 3 and they scored us a 2. Who cares? Just go do the right work. Go do the right work. And you can figure out what some of these areas are and shore up some of those scores that bug you, because some of them are things like we have an orientation program for our teachers. And that started a couple years ago. Well, we were just talking, you're going to have to ramp that up a little bit because you're going to have a whole bunch of PD under your belts that new teachers are going to have to get up to speed on. Okay, well, you're probably going to get an OFI around that, and you're probably going to do that work anyway. So don't look at those scores and obsess over that, or else you're going to miss all the good that you're doing and all the good work that came out of things. So I hope you celebrate this with your staff. I hope you tell them about all the good things that we're going to share. You're going to see some details of that in the report. And I hope you have a celebration about your accreditation and your willingness to go through a process that's pretty uncomfortable. I told Shane, are you worrying about this? No, I'm not, he said. And he was worrying about it, I'll tell you. So there's nothing to worry about. We're partners in moving forward, and you guys have a great start. And I know in 5 years you're going to move that arrow where you need to go. So want to thank you again for everything. It's been a pleasure to meet all of you. I know we'll be in touch. I always send out a few emails later and check up and see how you're doing. You can always email us with questions once you get the report. If something doesn't seem clear to you, I'm happy to see if I can help you work through that. So there you go, Kevin. Jerry, anything? Okay.
Oh, they'll have a review in 2 years.
Oh yeah, I'll share that with you. And we were just talking about it. In a couple years, you'll get a checkup to see if you're working on your required actions. And that will happen through your office here in Indiana, and they'll see if you need any support, see how things are going. You don't have to have things completed, but you have to have substantial work done on your required actions. But like I said, I don't think you're going to be changing direction. You're going to be moving down the path you're already going. So I think you're well on your way to getting some substantial work done, Kevin. So anyway, thank you guys. Appreciate it.
Thank you, Jerry. Thank you for coming. And Peggy and Kevin. Dan, been a pleasure to have you here at Tipton, and glad you enjoyed your stay. Rick, do you have any comments?
No, it was very nice meeting you all. I know the staff appreciate the feedback, and we will move that number.
You will move the number, there's no doubt.